Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you another chapter in the journey of transformation of Hoai, a journey long, difficult, and full of hope. In the past, Hoai couldn't read or write at all. Born into poverty, growing up without material comfort or opportunities, she never once had the chance to sit in a real classroom. Since childhood, her life revolved around working, helping others, taking care of younger siblings, and later, raising her own child. The alphabet, notebooks, pens, all of those were so distant that she didn't even dare to touch them. She knew she was at a disadvantage. Very clearly. But as the years went by, she became used to relying on others for almost everything, reading documents, filling in forms, checking instructions. Even simple things like reading medicine labels or Tony's therapy guidelines were challenges she couldn't overcome. She once believed it was simply her fate, that no amount of effort could change it. Until Hung appeared in her life. Hung wasn't a man of many words, but he understood her struggles. He noticed the way she hesitated whenever she held a piece of paper. Noticed every moment she tried to guess unfamiliar words. Noticed her helplessness when she couldn't read Tony's therapy documents, something any mother would want to understand for her child's sake. And those quiet details made Hung determined to help her. He gently encouraged her to attend adult education classes, not to dramatically change her destiny, but so she could stand on her own feet without having to depend on others. While Tony was undergoing treatment in the city, Hung searched everywhere for a suitable class, a place where Hoai could start from zero without being judged. On the first day of school, her hands were cold from nerves. The school gate was small, yet it felt like the entrance to a completely foreign world. Every voice and every laugh around her made her anxious, afraid others would mock her, afraid she wouldn't keep up, afraid she would be a burden. But all those fears faded quickly. The teachers were patient and guided her slowly, step by step. Her classmates came from all ages, younger adults, middle-aged people, even seniors, and they were all kind-hearted, like travelers rowing together on the same river. From someone who didn't even hold a pen correctly and could barely write a shaky stroke. Hoai became one of the most hard-working learners in the class. During the day, she cared for Tony, took him to therapy, managed the home. At night, after everyone was asleep, she opened her books and practiced every letter. Page after page covered in smudged ink, crooked lines, hesitant readings, but her determined heart never allowed her to quit. Sometimes she was so tired her eyes burned, yet she pushed herself to read one more line. Sometimes her handwriting looked terrible no matter how hard she tried, so she tore the page and started over. There were tears. There was pressure. But above all, there was a strength no one could measure. Thanks to her perseverance, she improved so quickly that the teachers soon promoted her to the next level. It made her proud, and it moved Hung even more. He saw every tiny step she took forward, every word she could finally read on her own. And just like that, Hoai's journey to literacy turned a new page, longer, harder, but also far more beautiful. Join today's video as we look back on this incredible journey, a journey where every step Hoai took was worthy of admiration. In the days that followed, Hoai continued her old routine, familiar, yet never easy. Every morning, before the sun had fully risen, she carried Tony out of the house, preparing him for another therapy session. On the familiar road leading to the center, the morning mist clung to her hair, her hands freezing from the cold, yet she still held Tony's hand tightly, as if letting go even for a moment might cause all her efforts to slip away. After the session ended, she hurried back to her part-time work. The tasks weren't heavy, but they were far from light, cleaning, arranging items, running errands from place to place. Despite the exhaustion, she performed every task with care, reminding herself silently. Just a little more, Hoai. The afternoon passed quickly in the whirl of responsibilities, and when evening came, a time others used to rest, Hoai sat at her small study table by the window. The dim yellow light cast a warm glow across her notebook, not bright, but warm enough to make her feel she wasn't alone in this journey. She focused on every word, every line, every stroke of the pen. There were moments when she was so tired she could fall asleep just by resting her head on the table for a few seconds. Her eyes burned, her hands ached, her mind spun after an entire day. But every time she remembered her simple dream, to read books to Tony, she straightened up, took a deep breath, and picked up her pen again. That dream was big enough to lift her from fatigue. That dream was bright enough to warm her entire room. Her teachers could see that effort. They saw the woman who arrived earliest and left last. Saw her notebooks full of smudged ink, heard her voice turning hoarse after practicing pronunciation again and again, and noticed how she stayed late to ask about things she still didn't understand. No one said it aloud, but in their eyes shone a deep respect for this special student. After a few months, her progress wasn't just visible, it exceeded everyone's expectations. Hoai didn't just keep up with the program, she advanced faster than many others in the class. The readings she once stumbled through became clearer. The writing that once shook with every stroke now lined up straighter, not perfect, but filled with undeniable determination. One afternoon, her teacher called her aside for a private conversation. Her voice was gentle, yet filled with pride. Hoai, you have real potential. I want to move you to the next level class, the one for advanced learners. For a moment, Hoai felt her heart stop. She froze, certain the words were meant for someone else. She was being promoted? She, the woman who once didn't dare hold a pen, who blushed whenever she read aloud, who spent hours rewriting just a handful of words, was now among the fastest learners. Emotion flooded her like water breaking through a dam. Her head lowered slowly, tears falling even as a grateful smile spread across her face. Thank you, teacher. Just a short sentence, but it carried all her humility and pride. When the news was announced, the entire class applauded her. Those claps weren't just congratulations, they were recognition, encouragement, and warmth for someone who had fought through so many hardships. Standing in the middle of that circle of support, Hoai felt her chest warming little by little. And though she didn't say it, she knew deep inside. This was only the beginning of a much longer journey. Stepping into the new class felt like entering a whole new world, wide, bright, and full of challenges for Hoai. The lessons were no longer as simple as the first days. There were more exercises, longer passages, and the pace was much faster, sometimes so fast she had to hold her breath just to keep up. But none of that discouraged her. On the contrary, the harder it got, the more she wanted to prove to herself that she could do it. Every lesson reminded her of how far she had come, and how much she had fought to stand where she was today. In the first days of the new class, she felt the pressure clearly. Thick exercises full of words, pages of books filled with phrases she had never seen before, even the small quizzes that made her heart race. Sometimes she had to sit for a long time just to read a passage others finished in a minute. Sometimes she read and wrote every word again into her notebook just to remember them. But Hoai never skipped anything. She read slowly, wrote carefully, and did everything she could to make sure she wouldn't fall behind. Her notebook was always covered with marks and tiny notes along the edges. Her handwriting was still a little stiff, a little slanted, but every line was neat and clean, just like her seriousness and determination. To Hoai, every page was a step forward, every stroke of the pen was a small victory. And then, the simplest things, things ordinary to everyone else, became precious milestones for her. The day she managed to read a billboard on the street, just a short sentence, a few big letters, her heart nearly stopped. Those letters that once looked like strange symbols now appeared sharp and clear. She stood still for a long moment, reading each word again and again until her eyes grew warm with emotion. She had never imagined the day she would understand something so simple. Then came the moment she wrote her own name. No more disconnected, shaky strokes, but clear, straight letters. She put the pen down and stared at the name, Hoai on the page, her chest tightening. It felt like she was looking at a new version of herself, more confident, more mature, and so much more deserving of pride. But the greatest, most beautiful change came at night. When she held Tony in her lap, warm light falling softly on a children's book, and he looked at her with those curious little eyes. And then she read aloud. No more whispering, no more trembling, just a gentle, steady voice filled with love. Tony, though still unable to speak properly, clapped happily every time. And that alone melted her heart. Behind them, Hung often stood by the doorframe. He didn't have to say anything, the pride in his eyes said it all. You make me so proud, Hoai. Just one sentence, but enough to give her the strength to overcome every hardship that waited ahead. And then, the long-awaited graduation day finally arrived, a day she never dared to believe would truly happen. The schoolyard that day was as lively as a festival. Rows of neatly arranged chairs, bright red banners, laughter blending with the sound of speakers, everything felt different from the usual class days. As Hoai stepped into the yard, her heart raced with excitement and disbelief, like a child entering her first big celebration. Hung held Tony in his arms, his other hand firmly holding hers. Both father and son wore neat shirts and trousers, so formal that Hoai couldn't help but laugh. Yet that very neatness warmed her heart. They were giving her their respect and love, for a journey she had fought through with everything she had. When the announcer spoke, loud and clear. Please welcome student Hoai, graduating with excellence, completing the literacy program. The applause rose like waves across the hall. Hoai stood up, her legs shaking so much she had to take a deep breath just to walk. From the stage, she saw Hung smiling proudly, Tony reaching out his tiny hands toward her. The sight blurred her eyes with tears. Her teacher handed her the certificate. A small piece of paper, yet heavy as the sky. It wasn't just a certificate, it was proof of her perseverance, resilience, and refusal to bow to fate. Her hands trembled as she held it, memories flashing of nights she fell asleep on the desk, moments she almost quit but forced herself to continue. Stepping down from the stage, she cried and laughed at the same time, unable to hide the emotions overflowing. Hung walked up, pulled her into a tight embrace, and whispered, "You did it. I told you. If you try, nothing is impossible." Tony reached out and touched the certificate, babbling happily. Such a small moment, but it filled Hoai with overwhelming happiness. In that moment, she realized she hadn't just graduated from a class. She had graduated from the shadows of self-doubt, insecurity, and the fear of not being enough. She stepped into a new journey, one guided by knowledge and lifted by love. That graduation day was the day their family became more complete than ever. The graduation ceremony ended with warm applause and a radiant smile on Hoai's face. From a woman who once couldn't read a single word, today she stood proudly, holding in her hands a certificate she once believed she would never reach. But this is only the beginning. With new knowledge and newfound confidence, the journey ahead for Hoai and Tony promises many unexpected turns and beautiful surprises. How will her life change after graduation? What new opportunities are waiting for her? Find out in the next episode tomorrow. If you've been touched by her journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. leave a like. And drop a message of congratulations for Hoai in the comments. See you in the next episode.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hiện tại thì mình đang làm video. Hôm nay thì mình đã đặt mục tiêu ra sẵn rồi. Mình làm gì ta? Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video sau nhé.